it's being sold as AI will fix all of your problems, but you still run into the same problems. You need to have your data ready. You need to have a structured way to approach your processes. You still need to think about a lot of the things that are underlying. Sure, you can realize your solution quicker if you're using AI or you're building an AI solution, but if you don't know what you're doing, you still have that gap, so you have to be smart about it still.
Hi, Lotte. Welcome to Drag and Drop.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Very exciting.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. I've followed your work a bit on LinkedIn and seen the things you're doing in the ecosystem, and you're an MVP, so I thought it'd be great to get you on here a bit about your journey and how you've got to today. And obviously things are changing very fast in the world
Very
of
fast,
technology,
yeah.
right? So I thought it'd be good to kind of hear your perspective on it. So before we dive in, it'd be good for those who may not know you to have a bit of an introduction to yourself.
Yes, so I'm Lotte Kuiper. As you can hear, I'm Dutch. I've been working with OutSystems now for 5 years, and I studied AI before that. So it's pretty exciting time for me to see OutSystems becoming the AI low-code platform, also in a role of MVP, kind of taking the role there, providing feedback, testing everything out. So that's what I'm doing right now, mainly AI consultancy, and then some fun things on the side.
Yeah, yeah. Can you go back to how you became aware of OutSystems? Like obviously I know in the Netherlands, OutSystems is very well known, but when did it first come on your radar?
Actually, because of a recruiter, I think
Okay.
many people from my age, even before you finish uni, they will
Mm,
shoot you a message and be like, "Hey, we have
yeah.
something interesting for you." And then all of the things were high code jobs, and then one
Mm,
of them sent me a message like, "We have a low code opportunity for you." I was like, "Huh, low code? What do you mean?" And got my attention immediately. So like, okay, let's have a chat. And they introduced me to OutSystems. I got to play around with it a little bit, and I got excited immediately because even though I studied AI, all of the high coding syntax stuff was really bothering me, and it wasn't helping me to solve the problems. I was mostly stuck in how to write it. And then they said, well, with low code, you have most of the things visually in front of you. The problem
mm.
solving stays the same. So, look, okay, cool. Let's try it out. And then I think not even a month later, I started my first job, and now I'm still working with it, and I'm loving it. So,
That's
pure
great.
coincidence, but it
Yeah,
was great.
that's great. And having kind of, studied, AI, before kind of the wave of AI now being in kind of every conversation, right? What feels generally different about, AI in the 2026 compared to this, pre-LLM era?
A lot of things. I was just thinking this afternoon, it's not even 5 years ago that I was still at uni discovering what was AI. Everything was very fake. We were already
Mm,
happy if we could create a system that could complete one task. We would have it to give specific instructions and then pray for the best. And then only the IT people would work with it. Whereas now even my mom is asking things to ChatGPT and she's using it. I'm like, you needed me to install your TV, How are you able to work with an AI tool nowadays? So it's become so much more broadly available for everyone to use, and to achieve their goals instead of only the IT nerds that
mm.
were using it before, only in the span of 5 years, 6 years maybe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think it's definitely funny that obviously I think many people rely on it on a day-to-day basis, right? And if you think about 5 years ago, 4 years ago, even, people must be thinking, how did we survive without this technology? Because it's just
yeah.
so part of everyday lifestyle now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do get a bit annoyed sometimes when I have my
Mm.
friends over and they say like, "Oh, let me ask chat," and I'm like, "No, you can ask me. You can ask your
Yeah, yeah,
friends.
yeah,
We can ask our neighbors what's a good restaurant to go to.
yeah,
You don't need to
yeah,
ask chat to do it for you." So,
yeah, yeah. A bit of over-reliance sometimes, isn't it?
yeah, maybe a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And when you started with OutSystems, what did you initially underestimate about building in with AI in a low code environment?
I think, well, it's always being sold as AI will fix all of your problems automatically. And I was kind of catfished by the idea that if I'm gonna use AI in a low-code
Mm,
platform, it would be super easy peasy.
mm,
But then you still run into the same problems of you need to have your data ready, you need to have a structured way to approach your processes. You still need to think about a lot of the things that are underlying. Sure, you can
mm.
realize your solution quicker if you're using AI or you're building an AI solution, but if you don't know what you're doing, you still have that gap, so you have to be smart about it still.
And, like obviously, when working with the platform and the features kind of obviously they're evolving, right? And they're kind of moving fast, how do you feel in the time that you've worked with the platform, do you feel like it's kept up to date or sometimes kind of falling behind? Obviously, as an MVP, also you get information that others get a bit later on. So what's your
Yeah.
kind of as someone also growing in their career? Do you feel like I'm working with this platform and it's moving at the right pace that I needed to move for my career?
I think now that they released the new mentor and the
Mm,
Agentic systems
yeah,
engineering, I
yeah.
think that is really something that kind of pulls them back and be in the front of the race alongside everyone. I noticed myself before that using Claude Code, for example,
Mm,
to kind of resolve my problems, and then I needed to translate it like, okay, but I need to build it in OutSystems still. And now with Mentor and the chat in the IDE, it already knows all of the meta rules we have within OutSystems. So all of the things that I needed to translate from Cloud Code, I can now just use the Mentor assistant for, which is really great and really something we've all been waiting for, I think. So
yeah.
it's cool
Yeah,
to see.
definitely a real interesting, and I'm assuming you already knew kind of what was going to be happening,
Yeah,
from that
it was
side.
difficult for me to stay silent. I know that they eventually, MVP manager, I always call her, but she reached
Mm.
out to me if I could record a video of me to
Yeah,
use for
so
promo. I was
yeah,
like, are we finally gonna release
yeah,
it? Yeah, I'm gonna make a promo video for
yeah.
you.
That's great.
So it was fun. I was really looking forward to it because it's been an iterative process. It's
Yeah,
not build over a day. We
mm,
all got the idea you develop software really quickly with AI, but
mm,
building good AI software takes a while. So I
yeah,
love going back and forth, and I'm really happy with what they did. And the
yeah,
more we will use it, the more the system will learn and the better
yeah,
it will get. So it's
yeah,
only improving from now on. It's
yeah,
really
yeah,
cool to see.
yeah. Definitely. And we're now past the prototype era, right? It's what has to be true for an agentic system to survive in production inside enterprises.
I think now that we're all convinced that it can bring your ideas to life, we have to keep in mind that it also needs to be secure, right? We have all these policies that all of our employees, you have to know what you can and cannot do,
Mm,
but we're also seeing agents that are built really quickly. Then they're released into the wild. You don't have a fail safe, and they're doing something, I don't know, they're transferring $5 million to the wrong account.
mm.
And you don't know, right? Because it was easy to build, you tested it with the happy flow, it's okay, sign it off, and now it lives in the wild. So I think we now
Mm.
have to focus on how can we tame our zoo. Jeroen
Yeah.
from Cool Profs, he called it like that, taming your AI zoo. I think that's the right term. We have all of these agents now. How can we orchestrate them? How can we govern them? How can we make sure that we are still in control, even though we're not manually involved in the process, maybe?
Mhm.
But we need to trust it. And we need to convince the CIOs that they can trust it, even though it's a black box and
Yeah.
it uses a lot of your data. Like, you need to know that it's safe. I think that's now the biggest issue. It cannot
Yeah.
go completely wild and
Yeah.
do whatever.
Yeah. And, where do you see teams making mistakes when they move from these AI features to AI decision making?
I think it's mostly in the same area. You have
Mm,
an idea and then you think, oh, this will be AI will be a good solution for this. Let's try it out. Let's make a prototype. Oh, the prototype is working really well. That's nice. And it's all going very quickly. So you don't really take the time to evaluate what you're actually building. You just want to have it finished, show to the customer that you've solved their problem. And
mm,
then to that, you're done. But you're not thinking of the steps in between where maybe you need a human in the loop to have
mm,
your your judgment if it's still going okay, if it's going into the right directions, have some checkpoints, have some validation, you know. It's not just giving suggestions anymore. We're trusting it to take care of the whole process, but we still need to monitor that.
Yeah, yeah. And, talking about agent workbench, it promises, orchestration and control, but where does the real responsibility sit? Is it the platform, the architect, or, the enterprise in this case?
Would be nice to say we can blame it on the platform, right? But no, I don't know. I as a developer, as a tech lead, project lead, I feel responsible for the
Mm,
solution we build in the end. Like the enterprise, the company hires us as specialists basically
mm,
for us to solve their problem, and then if we're gonna build that solution for them, it's our responsibility to build a safe solution that's performant, that's compliant, and everything. And of course, we have the platform to kind of help us with that and help us set it up correctly. But in the end, if you create some mess, then you're the one to blame, basically, right? Sadly,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
yeah, that's how it always goes. You're the first one they point the fingers to, so
yeah,
you should be aware of that
yeah,
responsibility.
yeah. And, with mentor, what does mentor, need to understand about how developers actually work day to day before it can truly augment them?
I think, well, at least with the newest version of Mentor, it's improved a lot.
Mm,
They also have this context layer now that I briefly mentioned before, where it
yeah.
now knows how the platform is working and it has all of the context of your business rules that you've implemented before, right? So now it's actually very useful that you can tell it to build another screen on top of your application and it barely needs any extra instructions. It builds you your blueprint and you can confirm it like you would usually do with a colleague that makes a wireframe and suggests it to you for peer feedback. So kind of the way that we're working with people in our team is now the way that we can work with Mentor as well. With the feedback cycle and then going back and forth and approving it, and then it builds it for you, and it's immediately, well, almost all of the times immediately correct because it has so much context awareness now that it's basically an
Yeah.
extra colleague in your team.
Mm, mm. And, obviously, you were aware of this prior, and now that it's kind of known to everyone globally about the new kind of release, what was the feedback amongst your peers and colleagues, when they kind of heard? Because for them, obviously, it's new news, right?
Yeah,
You've been kind of holding it in. So, what was the reaction from colleagues who had heard it, had seen it for the first time?
very fun.
Yeah,
Everyone immediately turned to me and was like, "Is it as good as it looks?" Was it
yeah,
because we had the big product launch and of course you prepare demos and everything in a
mm,
well-prepared demo goes well, like, can it really do this? Does it really have that fine print blueprint? Is it really as detailed and so quick? I'm like, yeah, you can go ahead and try it out. You know, it's available on
yeah,
Odyssey now.
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
go ahead. And then I've already had feedback from colleagues being like, wow, this is way better than I'd imagined. Can't we already start using this in our product? Or projects, you know, do our customers have it? I'm like, yeah, if you have your customer with Odyssey, you
yeah,
can
yeah,
try it out. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna try it out on Monday. So
yeah,
there's
yeah,
a lot of excitement all
yeah,
around the development teams. Like we've been waiting for this for quite a while.
mm,
And it's, yeah, it's just nice to have your own OutSystems AI assistant and not needing to use some other platforms like
yeah,
ChatGPT or Claude Code and then
yeah,
first explain how OutSystems works and what you've
mm,
built in there for your customer and then blah, now you can
yeah,
just be like, hey, add a extra screen where I can edit this and that, and it will create it for you and you're done. So it's a big
yeah.
improvement.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was great to not have to wait till the conference, right? I think that would have, I could only
Yeah.
imagine trying to stay quiet for another 2 months and 3 months,
Yeah,
on something
it's
like that. So
nice.
it was good.
I'm glad it's out. Yeah, I was already thinking like, oh, I'm glad it's not in September or October, right? Because
Mm,
usually the one
yeah.
conference would be
Yes.
after summer, so I was already
Yeah.
happy for June. But
Yeah.
now it was end of March, so that's great.
Yeah. It's really good. And, what's one AI application you've built in OutSystems that made you think, this is actually useful in the real world, like a really, strong use case?
I think, well, we've been doing a lot of proof of values to kind of see with our
Mm,
current customers, like what are areas where we can improve or
mm,
what would be a right process. But that didn't land on anything really, except for one thing where we stumbled upon a very painful process of a lot of people manually handling documents and then needing to search in different systems to kind of combine all the information, create a full-fledged request, and then they needed to email it to someone and that would review it and then it would come back and they need to correct it. Like you lose a lot of time of
mm,
going anywhere. And now we were able to create one flow combined with the workflows in ODC and a couple of agents that basically from the moment that we receive the files, it auto analyzes if you're missing information, it knows what external system to contact, it fills in the details, automatically sends it. So
mm.
the whole process is now completely automated and people are very happy with it. So I think that's a nice example of a really big company in the
Yeah,
Netherlands as well. I
yeah,
can't name them sadly,
yeah,
but
sure.
it was cool to see that you can
Mm,
actually help them and not just have the prototype.
yeah,
People get
yeah,
excited. They say, "Oh, maybe we want something like this," and then sometimes it just ends. And
yeah,
now we have a huge company where we were able to improve one of their key processes by putting an
mm,
agentic workflow
yeah,
system in between. So that was really,
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, and I guess it not only gives confidence to others, but also that organization in itself to do more, right? Because you now have
Yeah.
a successful use case. So there's this confidence, okay, this is the way forward. We've done one. How can we build on that?
Yeah, yeah, we already had different people from other teams
Yeah.
come in like, "Hey, I also have this tedious process. Could you please have a look on how to improve it?" I'm like, "Yes,
Yeah.
that's what we
Yeah.
want. Sure,
Yeah.
I can come over. We can look at all of your processes. It's
Yeah.
good."
That's
So
amazing.
it gets the ball rolling. Like if you can see what it can do for you personally, it makes such a big difference compared to going to all of these AI conferences and see
Mm,
someone else's story on screen. That's
yeah,
cool,
sure.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
getting
Definitely.
something in your own environment that helps you and your company, it's always a bigger inspiration
Yeah.
and a bigger
Yeah.
drive to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely, like you said, it's one thing going to like all these conferences and like, in June, there will be a lot of use cases on the
Yeah.
stage, right? But there'll be probably majority of the room probably still haven't done anything. They're kind of just waiting for the right moment
Yeah,
to
it's
do
funny,
something
right?
right. Yeah.
They
So
wait until
it's,
they see a company on
yeah,
stage
yeah,
that has
yeah,
exactly their use case,
yeah,
and then they
yeah.
think, "Ah, maybe
Maybe we
my
should do it.
one
Yeah.
would work."
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
You should
definitely.
just try it. I
Yeah.
mean, be mindful about it, but
Mm,
give it a try.
yeah. Yeah. And, obviously another kind of, real popular conversation is around, vibe coding. Vibe coding is, exploding, and,
Yeah.
with vibe coding, do you feel it's accelerating innovation or creating hidden technical debt, we'll regret in a couple of years' time?
Both. I think, I mean, within our own company, for example, we did
Hmm.
this AI training day to get everyone up to speed, and we used
Yeah.
Lovable as one of the
Okay.
tools
Yeah.
to kind of see, get a feel for it, see what it can do, kind of get out of our OutSystems bubble
Yeah.
and just try it out. And now everyone has this Lovable account, and we have a shared space, and it's a complete
Nice.
mess.
Oh, really?
Everyone
Okay.
goes crazy because everyone's like, "Oh, I have this idea. Would it work?" And then they go blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then they have a nice working app and they show it to the customers like, "Oh, we could build this." And like, "Okay,
Mm,
but how would it work functionally?" I don't
mm,
know. We still need to figure it out. And that's the moment
yeah.
where I'm thinking, okay, you can create the first step very
Mm,
easily, but it's kind of scary that you're so confident that you go to a customer to present it without actually knowing how
mm,
it's working in the background. So I think we have to keep in mind that you need to look at the whole picture and not just be like, okay, it looks good. I think it's
yeah.
working. I'm not gonna touch it. We'll go live with it. If something happens, a scenario we didn't think of, I don't know, we'll watch it
Yeah.
explode. So
Yeah.
it can be a bit tricky if you're using it without thinking about what you're actually building.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's definitely obviously been a big game changer for non-IT people for sure, right?
Yeah.
It kind of obviously allows them to float whatever idea they've got, but I think it's still a while away from kind of competing
It
at the
is.
enterprise level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny to me. We had a old manager within a company, and we've been building with a full team building an application for her and her business. And after a while it was done, and then she discovered Flutterflow, which is also
Mm,
like an AI tool
yeah.
for building mobile apps. And she said, "Yeah, I was working on this last night and I rebuilt the entire app, but I did it myself." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Can you show me?" So he's like, "Yeah, I can show you. It all works." I'm like, "Okay, can you click add new?" "No, no, no, don't touch it. That doesn't work." I'm like, "Okay, but you said you rebuild it." Like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, I
yeah.
don't know how to do that part." I'm like, "Ah, so you still need us.
Yeah,
See?"
exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So it's funny. It's nice for them to kind of have this way to express their thoughts
Yeah,
while not being educated in the
yeah.
IT field.
Mm,
But still, you're gonna need us to actually realize it and make it production ready
yeah,
and ready to use, right? So it's um it's funny to see them figuring it out, but it's also
yeah.
reassuring that we're not gonna lose our
Yeah,
jobs
of course.
anytime soon
Yeah,
because
definitely.
we are needed very much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you touched on obviously like, a lot of companies kind of watching existing use cases and waiting kind of for something very similar to what they've got, what do you feel is the biggest blocker for these CIOs and leaders to fully trust these agentic systems?
I think for most people, it still feels like a black box. So you have your intent and you put it in like you want to improve this process, right? But
Mm,
once you give the agents autonomy, you lose track of it. You can't micromanage them. Well, you can, but then that would defeat the purpose of
yeah.
automating the process. So I think the biggest step that at least we are making is making sure that every step the AI takes on its own, make it explain itself, and then make it do a report and kind of that you
Mm,
can show that it's actually having the right thought
yeah.
between the decisions. And then they're the management level, they see these reports and then they kind of get the confidence like, okay, it's not a crazy system. We have the guardrails in place. It's been set up securely. Our data doesn't go anywhere, it's a private connection, all of these things,
Mm,
but you have to prove every step of the way that you've thought about that it's secure, that it's working, that it won't do any crazy shit. So
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the biggest challenge in that is building the trust on the system. It's like allowing your kid to go to school on her own for the first time. You're like,
Mm,
I
yeah.
don't know. But
Yeah.
now we
Yeah.
put the webcam on and we have a live
Yeah.
stream and
Yeah.
we can watch from home what it's doing at all
Yeah.
times.
Trying to track my
And
phone and everything. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then after a couple of times we think, oh, it's fine. And then
Yeah.
we can let her go on her own. I
That's a
think
good
it's like
example.
that. You have
Yeah.
to see it go right a couple of times before you can trust it. And you have
Yeah.
to make sure that again you have that fallback in case something happens. That it's not
Yeah.
gonna collapse your whole process or your whole environment. That you always have a fallback in case something
Yeah.
unexpected happens. But
Yeah. And on that, what do you think's still missing, technically or organizationally, before enterprises really run mission critical agents without
mm,
these human checkpoints?
I think there will be always some human checkpoints. I mean, I would prefer to have a human checkpoint,
Yeah.
especially mission critical processes. You don't want it to transfer $1 billion to the wrong account. You don't
Hmm.
want it like if it's only booking a restaurant for tonight, I don't care that much.
Yeah, sure.
But if it's involving well bigger and more important
Mm.
flows, you will need these humans in the loop, as we keep calling them, to kind of ensure that the final decision is being approved by someone with the right knowledge and authority to approve it. But the whole process before that, I think, is still missing some refinement within the businesses their own because mostly the business processes that they want us to automate aren't even fully developed yet. If
Mm.
we ask them like, oh, you have this process, how does it work? Yeah, I don't really know actually. You have to ask John and then you need to go to
Yeah.
Philippa and then we need to patch it all together. And like if you don't even know the full process, how do you
Mm.
expect us to make it a agentic automatic process? So
Yeah.
I think it will always be the biggest challenge to get your organization data ready and to have your business flows clear enough for something to interpret it fully and execute it like
Yeah,
perfectly.
yeah. And with OutSystems, I think for years there's been a lot of misconceptions around OutSystems, low code. I don't know, maybe not so much in Netherlands because there's two major players there rather than just one, so it's really well known. But now with this kind of this in this AI world, what misconceptions about the platform do you think are outdated now?
I think, well, if I'm comparing myself to my high code friends,
Mm.
they always make fun of me for working with a low code
Okay.
platform. And because they're like, but it's just a game, you drag and you
Yeah.
drop and it's
Yeah.
already there and you don't need to do anything. I'm like,
Mm.
well. That's the broad misconception, right? And
Yeah.
now it's funny to me that they are the ones on LinkedIn posting about their AI developer assistants that are making their life so much easier because they don't need to write the code themselves. I'm like,
Yeah.
who's moving towards a no code platform now, right? It's not OutSystems yet, but they're
Mm.
writing their prompts and they're not writing their code anymore. I think the gap between high code and low code is becoming a bit smaller because of
Mm.
AI coming in and assisting developers, which kind of makes it a bit more for young people and a more fresh attitude instead of
Mm.
only the people that don't know how to develop software, they go to low code. That was
Yeah.
kind of the vibe that we had
Yeah.
within our group. They were always pointing at me and laughing a little bit, and now I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I'm building enterprise solutions, you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're been taken a bit more seriously now,
Yeah.
which is always nice.
Yeah. I think also obviously the generation coming through with only knowing AI, right? So that misconception will be more with the old school style
Yeah,
developer who's been kind of, it's like the days before a mobile phone and things like that, right?
yeah,
So it's kind of there's two sides. So I think that will slowly definitely get to a point where most developers are just used to this way of working. So there won't be as many misconceptions around.
yeah. Yeah, I think it will definitely improve. I was just thinking about how crazy it is to me that people that are growing up now, they won't know a life without a phone, without
Yeah.
AI,
Yeah.
without anything. They will already have their own website long before they
Yeah.
go to high school, to kind of post pictures
Yeah,
and
yeah,
their art or whatever hobbies
yeah,
they have. I'm
yeah,
like, wow, that's nice. What a
yeah,
life.
yeah. Especially with obviously social media, they can start earning an income before they even leave school these days. So,
Also, yeah,
so things are really changing
it's really
very quickly.
changing. You don't
Yeah,
need to work in the supermarket, kind of
yeah,
fill the stock
yeah,
anymore. You
yeah,
can just,
yeah.
oh,
Dance in
that's
front
really
of your
cool.
phone for 30 seconds a day and make some
Yeah,
money.
I mean, like,
Yeah,
that's where we're going, right? Oh
yeah,
no.
yeah, definitely. And th- you know, is the modern out systems developer becoming, obviously the roles probably not yet, but going to shift? Do you think it's going to be more of a systems designer, prompt engineer, orchestrator, or it is actually already something else?
Yeah, I think we're moving towards all being a bit more of an architect. If I
Mm,
compare it to, well, the current architect role or
mm,
maybe the one of 2, 3 years ago, where you have to now keep in mind the whole picture, right? It's not, you can do some prompt engineering, that's fine, that's the instructions you give to it, but where does your agent fit in the ecosystem? How does it connect to external systems? So you're also becoming an architect, but also the integration specialist because you need to be aware of the tools that it can use. You're becoming more of a delivery manager because you need to
mm,
think of what it will do if you progress through all of the stages and go live with it. So you're kind of yourself becoming more of an orchestrator, and you need to
mm,
know the full stack before you can truly develop a full AI solution. Otherwise, if you only know how to do front end, yeah, it's
mm,
gonna be difficult, right? Or if you only know how to set up API connections, then you have a long way to go and to build that full system around it. So you have to expand your tool set a little bit, but I also think that it's easy now to learn those new type of skills you need to have. Not only the
yeah,
prompt engineering, but also agentic systems themselves have their own architecture patterns, right? So
Mm,
you need to evolve a little bit and educate yourself on how that affects the current architecture of your applications. But
yeah,
I mean, anything is manageable and it's
yeah,
very good to invest in it and it's
yeah,
fun to do too. So I think
yeah,
it's a more exciting role that we can grow into as a developer, not
yeah,
focusing on one area, but the broader picture.
yeah, yeah. And with AI, obviously, things are changing so fast, right? They're moving, and something today could be dated tomorrow or next week, right? And change, And as someone who's kind of been learning and in the space for prior to it being kind of a hype, looking forward to in 3 years' time, what do you think will kind of still, is there anything that's kind of been consistent that still from when you started to now that still matters that you see going forward?
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one. Because I think we're now um, all getting the idea that an AI solution, an AI agent can do anything and everything, and we try
Mm,
to apply it in every situation. And I remember trying to fit it into every situation when I just started at university 9 years ago.
mm,
It's like, oh, cool, it's AI. Can I use it to whatever, solve this issue or wash my dishes or
yeah, yeah,
whatever, for everything that you don't like doing, you think, oh, could I improve it by
yeah.
doing AI? And I think now, in a few years from now, we will hopefully start to become a bit more critical about what processes can actually benefit from using AI rather than just doing it with AI because we're all doing everything with AI now. So if it's
Mm,
not AI, it's bad or something.
mm,
I mean, you have a lot of processes that are super deterministic, that are super, I don't know, every detail is always the same. So why would you do it with
mm.
AI? It's not the right
Yeah,
use case, right? It looks cool on your website if you say that your company has released a new AI solution, but what does it
yeah,
actually solve?
yeah,
Probably not any problem because there
yeah.
was no problem to begin with. So please start with the problem first and then critically pick if AI is the solution for it or if you just go with traditional development. That's also fine. I mean,
Mm,
it's not like it's not cool if you're writing
yeah,
the code yourself and writing the rules and having a case switch that just have six fixed
mm,
options instead of calling tools and letting 5 agents talk with each other and then some email comes out.
yeah,
It
yeah.
can be a bit of overkill.
But talking about traditional developers, and like you said, some might still choose to be that person writing code, right, and follow that career. But what would you tell them to start doing differently tomorrow? If that's what they've chosen, what would you tell them to start doing differently to obviously make sure they can progress as well and not be left behind?
I think, at least from what I've seen at my previous company, I've worked with a lot of senior developers that started as an Oracle DBA. I really had to
Mm,
convince them to try it out one time. And then they were very hard to get to try it out once, and then they did it, and they were actually very happily surprised with how it could assist them. And again, they were also confirmed that they wouldn't lose their jobs because of
mm,
using AI. So I feel that's kind of the general feeling the traditional developers have now. Like, no, I can do it on my own. I don't need help. I don't need
mm.
you to tell me how I should write my code. But then if you try it out, they'll be like, oh, this is actually cool. And then you
Yeah,
ask another question like, can you build this? And then it builds a full app for you. And like, oh, it's actually better than I expected. So, and then from then on, you will start to find ways to incorporate it in your work, or you really get the confirmation that it's not for you, and you'll continue your work as you've always done. But I think the first thing is giving it a try, giving it a go. I mean, you have so many accessible tools right now, so many free to try solutions online that you can explore if you just
mm,
spend a little time on it. Open your eyes, look out to
yeah,
the wide world. There's a reason that the hype isn't dying and it's
yeah,
stabilizing and becoming like a standard now. So I think if you're working in IT, you need to go with the flow.
yeah,
Go
yeah,
with the trends. Of course, be critical about it. But yeah, don't close off to it because it's a big part of the IT world now. Even if you're a traditional developer, I
mm,
expect you to be at least aware of AI and what it can do
Yeah.
and how it could help you. So
Yeah. And I guess obviously, it's at the end of the day, it's still just another tool for your tool belt, right? Whether the wave is still going high,
yeah,
and you never know what will happen. But at the end of the day, it's like even when years ago and still maybe some who are skeptical of low code, whether you work with it or not, if you learn it, it's still something that adds value to your
yeah,
CV and skill set
definitely,
going
yeah.
forward.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
won't get any dumber
Yeah,
trying to
exactly. Yeah,
learn
yeah.
how to incorporate AI in your life.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's worth spending some time and expanding your knowledge on it. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And, finally with, obviously, a lot of kind of in the last year developments with the platform, with the OutSystems platform, a lot of positive announcements, a lot of things kind of changing, obviously leadership changing direction, kind of more AI than low code now kind of word
Yeah.
positioning, right? You know, what are you kind of, most excited about? As obviously you get obviously you've just been part of this process of knowing something for a while and it's come out, but obviously looking forward, what excites you the most? And is there anything that still kind of worries you as well?
Mhm. Let's start with the positive things.
Yeah.
I like that the platform is really opening up now with the latest changes that were announced that we could use, for example, Cloud Code to pop
Mm,
into ODC, that you have the options to connect it to whatever external system toolings you have. I like that a lot because that's kind of how all of the open source tools are working nowadays too, right? And all of the cool kids, let's
mm,
say that were on the AI hype train, they were waiting for OutSystems to make that move
yeah.
and to open up the platform more. So I really like that, and I'm really looking forward to what will be announced at one, what will
Mm,
come in later in the year as well, because there are so many product teams working on
yes.
R&D and
So many
cool
things. Yeah.
cool stuff, that's being developed now. So I really looking forward to new features
Mm,
being added on top of the
yeah.
platform, kind of renewing it along the way. But what I do see is that because the focus is now so on developing new stuff, that
Mm,
we kind of see features getting released before they were fully tested or fully developed.
yeah.
And then you get the risk that we are very excited that a new feature is there. We want to try it out, and
Mm,
immediately when we try it out, we run into limitations.
yeah.
And then you have to report it back, which is
Yeah.
always a risk of trying to move fast and stay up
Mm,
to speed with all of the trends. But I hope that they also keep in mind that sometimes going a bit slower is better if you can
yeah.
ensure that it's working right out of the box when you announce it, and that people can start using it. So that was the only
Yeah.
thing that I'm a bit worried about
Yeah.
sometimes.
Like you said, obviously they give early access to some people to kind of do these things, but that doesn't always mean you're going to get the right strong product at the end, right?
No,
There's this race in the AI world right now. Okay, who's going to kind of win the race? And I see obviously a lot of them are not, I wouldn't say failing, but obviously hitting some bumps along the way because they're trying to
yeah.
be so quick in kind of being the first to make a move.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happier without systems,
Mm,
sometimes feeling a bit behind and then taking
yeah,
the time to fully finish something before they release it, rather than organizations that just sprint and sprint and sprint, and
yeah,
they will hire new people to solve the bugs, and
mm,
the, they will get it done one way or another, but you're not really having that user experience or developer
yeah,
experience in my opinion. OutSystems is handling that really well. So, and they really listen to your feedback. That's why they have
yeah,
these early access programs,
yeah,
right? They want to build it so that it works for you, not only for
yeah,
us as a developer that it makes sense, but also for the customer, that
yeah,
they know that we're putting a new feature on top of the platform that they've been waiting for a while,
mm,
instead of everyone just running to get a new feature in and then no one's gonna
mm,
use it because it doesn't matter. You see that happening a lot. So I think
yeah,
if they keep the focus good and they keep involving people early in the process, then we will have some really nice features
yeah,
released this
yeah,
year. Well, I already
yeah.
know that there's gonna be some nice features, but you'll see. I
Yeah, of
promise you
course. Yeah.
today, there will
Yeah.
be more nice features
Well,
coming.
that's what I was thinking when I watched the launch at the end of March. Okay, they've done this big launch now. One is not that far away. They've obviously got something else because they're not going to just talk about the same things again in Amsterdam, right? So there's something else kind of
Exactly.
cooking in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of cooking in the background, I would
Nice,
say.
good.
I hope that people still enjoy their weekends and get their full nights of sleep, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of lot of work going on
yeah,
to get new things released on the stage at once. So that
amazing.
will be very exciting.
Great, great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me, share about your journey, share about, how you see things now and evolving and, your views. And, it was great to speak to you. It
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Very fun.
was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.